Okay. Good day, everybody. I am Somto Kizor. This paper was written by Adekunle, Idris, Callistus, Phillips, Olayemi, Esther, and myself. It's titled A Review of Cybersecurity as an Effective Tool for Fighting Identity Theft Across the United States. This presentation will be, I will give an introduction to the paper. I will define some of the concepts and terminologies used in our research article. I'll go into the methods of stealing information, then our data study and observations, the results of our study, then some conclusions and recommendations. So as an introduction, the internet and technology have grown significantly over the past decades. It has brought about a lot of improvements to national competitiveness, promotion of innovation, facilitation of globalization, and basically technology and the internet have improved our lives. But with the advantages, there are also disadvantages, which include cybersecurity risks and vulnerabilities that are very prevalent with the use of these technologies around the world. So as we keep using technology in our daily living, there's a proliferation of data, and which has led to a rise in cybersecurity challenges. So with how computing environments are, and with how the infrastructure of computer environments are, when there is a breach to one system, it basically opens doors to widespread exploitation all around. So this paper is focused on the United States. So in the United States, cyber criminals prey on people, companies, organizations, and even the government. And most times it's not just a lone hacker, it could be part of an international criminal group or political rivals, states basically spying on each other and breaching each other's securities for some kind of advantage. So by the misuse of lawful digital and financial infrastructure, criminal actors basically sell data and they basically thrive on a weak cybersecurity system. And I will go forward. So I will be defining some of the concepts we spoke about in the paper often. Identity theft. The United States Department of Justice defines identity theft as all types of crime in which someone wrongfully obtains and uses people's personal data in some way that involves fraud, deception, or anything for economic gain that is illegal. In the paper, we identified 3 stages of identity theft. Stage 1 is identity is acquired through theft, hacking, fraud, trickery, force, redirecting mail, or through legal means. However, not so legal, because people can buy victims' information from other people, sometimes over the dark web and other means. Stage 2 involves the use of the acquired data, acquired identity information for financial or personal gain. The most common, we found in our paper that the most common motivation for identity theft was and is financial gain. So basically the bad actor uses the data acquired for personal gain. The criminal avoids arrest from law enforcement and other authorities to basically perpetuate the harm to gain finances. Stage 3 is discovery. This is the stage where it could be the victim of the theft who quickly realizes that they are being their data or their identities have been stolen. And some methods of stealing information that we looked at in our paper include malware, short for malicious software, which involves the intrusive use of refers to intrusive software developed by criminals to steal data and damage or destroy computers and computer systems. Malware, basically the goal of malware is to cause havoc, steal information or resources for monetary gain or just sheer sabotage. And we could see a malware could lead to intelligence, like the theft of intelligence and intrusion into personal lives, disruption in day-to-day activities, and extortion. We had seen cases of basically blackmail. It could lead to destruction of vandalism or just pure monetary gain. We also looked at spamming as a means of identity theft. Spamming is the act of sending unsolicited and commercial bulk messages over the internet. Spam messages or emails overload the networks and occupy memory. And mostly we see it in the form of spam emails sent to steal people's personal information by having links that seem legit but are mostly compromised. We also looked at phishing. It's the practice of sending fraudulent communications that appear to come from a legitimate and reputable source, usually through email, text messaging. And the attacker's goal is to steal money, gain access to sensitive data, and login information. Phishing emails, they are quite popular. They reach millions of users because they are pretty cheap to get. They reach millions of users. They hide among huge emails, like you just receive a barrage of emails, and can be used to sabotage systems, steal intellectual property, and ultimately money. We looked at hacking, and hacking is the act of identifying and then exploiting weaknesses in a computer system or network, usually to gain unauthorized access to personal or organizational data. Hacking is not always malicious, but it's popularly used to connote negativity. But hacking was not always bad. There's ethical hacking, which is the act of simulating an attack, basically to test the security of software, and the goal of which is to find and fix any bugs in the code before malicious hackers take advantage of these breaches to steal data or harm a company. So our study, we did a data study on the impact of cybersecurity on identity theft in the United States using time series data between 2001 and 2021, 20 years. And we got our data from the US Federal Trade Commission and Insurance Information Institute. And the analytical methods we used were the descriptive analytics and the chi-square analysis. Descriptive analysis, the process of using, I will just explain it just for our listeners, process of using current and historical data to identify trends and relationships. Very simple. And the chi-square analysis, it's a statistic test used to calculate data, raw, random data from independent variables drawn from a wide-ranging sample. So in our we used of all the data available on the two data sources, we just picked 20 years, a random 20 years to basically understand the patterns and the relationships of the different categories of data. And in our data study, we looked at a general analysis of customer complaints in the United States, because this paper was looking at identity theft specifically, but we started from the general to the specific. So we looked at general complaints specifically, general complaints, then identity theft complaints, and fraud complaints. And in the green is the identity theft complaints. Orange is general consumer complaints, and blue fraud complaints. And in the year 2017, between 2017 and 2021, in 2017, identity theft complaints were at about 13% of general consumer complaints.
Okay.
And we saw that this doubled, went up to in 2020, just within 3 years, we were at 28% in the United States. It dropped a bit by 3% in 2021. We observed that identity theft related complaints were on a steady rise, and relatively, which came as no surprise, identity theft accounts for a larger proportion of consumer complaints in the recent years than it did in the latter years. By 2009, so in the early 2000s, I beg your pardon, the number of complaints were on a steady level. We found that, unfortunately, I didn't add that graph, but we found that in the early 2000s, it was basically a straight line of there was basically no shift in the number of complaints. Identity theft complaints by victims, but by 2009, the complaints shot up from a peak of 250,000 complaints in 2001 to an average of 1.5 million in 2021. We also, in our paper, we also evaluated the spendings on cybersecurity. So basically, the chi-square analysis was to evaluate identity theft complaints, juxtaposing it with cybersecurity spending to see if there was a relationship between them. So the analysis of cybersecurity spending, we found that in the United States over the years, as no surprise, cybersecurity spending has only skyrocketed. In 2010, there was spent about $27.4 billion on cybersecurity by both state agents and private companies. And this only increased up to in 2018, it was $66 billion, and I corrected it to 70 billion when I checked again. And between the last 5 years, between 2018 and 2023, we have even seen nearly 3 digits billion dollars spent on cybersecurity. So we found from the cybersecurity spending data set that, of course, spending on cybersecurity has been on a continuous increase over the years. We found that the US government spending has increased. The government has done a lot of injecting funds into the system to curb the breaches in cybersecurity and malicious hacking. We found that US businesses lost an estimated $1 trillion in 2021, between 2021 and 2022. Our study results, based on the 2 data sets, that is the general complaints of consumers and specifically identity theft related complaints and the cybersecurity spending, we found that identity theft is a multifaceted issue and influenced by diverse variables beyond cybersecurity spending alone. So it's not as much as how much we spend on cybersecurity. Money alone is not a determinant of how much cybersecurity issues or challenges can be curbed. We found that the nature of identity theft encompasses social engineering, data breaches, and other vulnerabilities that cannot be or may not be solely mitigated by financial allocations to cybersecurity. So you could spend as much, but because technology evolves a lot and identity theft doesn't come in one way, it could happen across various mediums. Even as monies are being spent on like curbing the breaches in one way, the malicious actors only evolve to other ways, so financial allocations don't really do much. So as the cyber criminals, their tactics keep evolving, it continually challenges the preventive measures that governments or private actors put in place so this potentially limits the direct spending, the direct impact of spending on the overall prevalence of identity theft. So the conclusion of our study was that there was no significant relationship between cybersecurity and identity theft. Our conclusion and recommendations were that as the profitability of cybersecurity, the sale of cybersecurity tools and exploits grow, criminals will continuously modify their techniques and become even more sophisticated to maliciously breach security infrastructure. In the last few years, the United States saw about 6 successful attacks on government institutions. So not just private individuals or companies where the unfortunate victims of these cybersecurity breaches, but we found that even government parastatals were affected by the breaches because they keep evolving. And we also got from the data that just as there has been an exponential rise in identity theft in the United States, there has also been an accompanying increase in the United States cybersecurity spending. I made a mistake there. So just as if there's a breach to the tune of like 50 million victims data breached, it's almost like we see a spending that is almost on par with that, but that hasn't gone anywhere to change or reduce the impact of breaches in cybersecurity on the victims. And we concluded that no doubt, while prioritizing cybersecurity investment remains essential, it should be seamlessly woven into a comprehensive framework that acknowledges the diverse aspects of identity theft. So what we were saying basically was that there's no one way to fight identity theft. It's not just one, the finances help, but there should be different like technological enhancements, behavioral modifications, policy-driven measures to holistically address the ever-evolving landscape of identity theft. And that part is basically for the government. How do you create policies that will address identity theft and protect the individual? How do you basically manage or govern technologies to make them basically privacy focused from the get-go? But then on the private for the private companies, we recommend that data privacy techniques should be incorporated in the development of consumer-facing technologies. It's basically the trend used to be create technology or create internet-based websites that people would use without factoring in privacy till after the fact. But what we recommend here is basically incorporating privacy techniques from the software development lifecycle. And we also recommend an increased accountability for data breaches by leadership of corporate institutions. So when the breaches have happened, it seems far-fetched when it comes to corporations because there's no one individual you can point to, but we still recommend increased accountability for those who are in charge of those technologies that people use. And that would be the end of my presentation. Thank you.